Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming Ms. Signe Razzo, Deputy Director General for Research and Innovation and Chief Negotiator of Horizon Europe of the European Commission. A very warm welcome, Ms. Razzo, to Singapore in a warm country, and it's going to be cool very soon. This afternoon, Ms. Razzo will be providing us insights into EU-Singapore research and innovation cooperation, present and future prospects. Distinguished guests, to transform the challenges of our time into opportunities, we need to have a thriving research and innovation ecosystem. This principle guides both Singapore and European Union research agendas. Today, our exceptional speakers and panelists will investigate how to step up our cooperation even further. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Deepika Shetty, Press Officer for the European Union Delegation to Singapore, and it is my privilege to be your MC for this event. Today's event is possible thanks to the cooperation of the European Union Delegation to Singapore, EURAXESS ASEAN, and the Nanyang Technological University of Singapore. And international cooperation will be at the center of the panelists' interventions, as you will hear in just a few moments. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping notes. Since we come back to a physical space, may I please request everyone to put your cell phones on silent so there are no disruptions while the discussions are on. I'd like our guests to know that our event today is being recorded and it will be made available on the European Union Delegation's YouTube channel, as well as our website and our social media platforms. And of course, we do encourage social media posts while the discussion is on. To kickstart our proceedings, it gives me great privilege to invite now Professor Tim White, Vice President International Engagement of the Nanyang Technological University. Thank you, Professor White, for hosting us today, and I hand the stage over to you.
Thank you very much, and Ambassador, welcome. Ms. Razzo, thank you so much for coming to see us, and thank you everyone for joining us at NTU today. It really is our privilege to have you here, and we very much welcome this opportunity to talk about the prospects for more interactions between the EU and Singapore. I just take a couple of minutes to talk about NTU and the EU. You're probably aware that we do have cooperations, but the extent of the cooperations may surprise you a little bit. I did some checking this morning just to make sure my data is up to date. But we have more than 350 agreements for research and education with EU countries. It covers 18 countries in the EU, and more than 100 of our professors have been trained in the EU. So we have very extensive and deep linkages to the European Union countries, and this must set the scene for doing much more in the future. I should also add that something that NTU is extremely proud about is that we see ourselves as a conduit for translating research into outcomes. And we have something like 250 companies working on campus here. And when I say that they work on campus, I really mean that they're on campus. So the largest of these engagements take in companies like Continental, they take in companies like Evonik and so forth. But if we look at those engagements, what's very important is that the companies being here allows them to look down into the university to see what discoveries are coming out. It allows our faculty to get used to what the company culture is. It provides an obvious pathway for our students to be interns and gain jobs. So there's very close linkage with European countries, and their companies arising from there is also critical for us. I should also add that one of the features of NTU, which we leverage on to engage with Europe, is that when you talk about technologies, many of them were developed for temperate or colder climates. They do not work well in the tropics. And so we have something called the Renewable Energy Integration Demonstrator, which is on an island south of Singapore called Semakau. We have around about 45 companies working there, of which around 30 are from Europe. And it allows them to have a test bed and provide demonstrators and refine their technologies for tropical climates. And finally, I just mention that for those of you who are not familiar, of course, Singapore works on 5-year research innovation plans and has been doing this since 1991. And NTU actually develops its own 5-year plan in parallel with the national plan. So we're now just into NTU 2025. And the 2 points I'd like to make with respect to that plan is that, first of all, we see having greater diversity in our students as being critical. So being able to attract more of our students from Europe to spend time in Singapore, and equally more of our students to spend time in Europe would be really great. We have a policy that 80% of our undergraduates must spend time overseas before they graduate. So when you consider that we have a student cohort of about 23,000 students, that's a lot of overseas placements that we have to make. And it would be wonderful if we could place more of our students in Europe. So that's all I will say for the moment. I look forward to a very fruitful discussion this afternoon. Again, welcome to everybody for coming here. It's our pleasure to host you, and I hope you have an enjoyable afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor White, for welcoming us to NTU, for your inspiring words and for the connections between Europe and Singapore. It gives me now great pleasure to invite on stage Her Excellency Ivona Piorko, European Union Ambassador to Singapore. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Deepika. Professor Tim White, friends from NTU. I have to say, from my early days on here in Singapore, I feel at NTU really like at home. It's a really thriving community with Vanda, with everyone here, and the multitude of cooperation initiatives we have together, even in the area of arts and films, is really inspiring. It is really my great pleasure to join you in welcoming Deputy Director General Signorazzo from European Commission, from the part of our European Commission which deals with issue very much at the core of our discussions today, to Singapore. She was here quite so many years ago, so I'm really privileged to welcome you now in this capacity, and to have you all and colleagues online with us. A bit of a sober note, but I believe it's always important to remember nowadays that we meet in what continue to be very difficult times for Europe and the world, including Asia, namely the times of Russian invasion of Ukraine. And I just want to underline how much we appreciate the authorities of Singapore position on this, defending the UN core values of Charter of United Nations, but also very much the Singaporean people who have been helping so strongly on this matter. It's because both Singapore and European Union in many areas see things very similarly, and we are, for vast majority of things, very like-minded, and definitely the area we are discussing today, research and innovation, is a very, very good example of that alignment of interests. And you mentioned, Professor, the Singapore forward-looking strategy, the Research, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Program for Singapore, and it's good to hear that NTU is somehow, aligned to this, because that means you are also aligned to Horizon Europe, because it really covers similar areas and similar timelines. So all is set there to cooperate even more. We both support academia, business, civil society to modernize our societies in fair and sustainable way, and I think we all believe that nothing of that is possible without international cooperation, as you've described. We've suffered through the COVID pandemics here in Singapore also quite a bit, with the restrictions only recently lifted, but also during the pandemics we saw how important is international cooperation. We would have never put had at all vaccines so quickly without international cooperation in that area. It was really amazing, time record, which was so much needed to save so many lives. But looking beyond the pandemics, the obvious areas are, of course, climate change, digitalization, very much so food security recently, a quite widely spoken subject, rightly so, in the worldwide, but also in Singapore, value chains and so on. And both the European Union and Singapore are constantly innovating in these areas. We in the European Union, but I also very much know, in general in Singapore, certainly at NTU, believe that science and research are positive forces for our society. And both as policymakers and academics, we have the responsibility of growing or helping to grow the community of researchers, also through international cooperation. And we do, as I said, really believe innovation rarely happens in isolation. We need each other to come with creative ideas, and we need diversification. This is something that's been at the front of the DG visit since yesterday night, when we discuss the characteristic, let's say, of Singapore research and education area. So the European Union, and the Deputy Director General is going to talk about this in a minute, aims to step up our cooperation with Singapore in this area. We have offered to Singapore possibility of association to Horizon Europe. This is really something that we are very much discussing now, and we hope you are going to become our ambassadors, much better than me for this, and we really count on you. So without further ado, I just want to thank once again NTU and EURAXESS ASEAN, and of course also my small but beautiful team for work on this, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion today. Thank you very much again.
Science, research, and innovation as positive forces for our society. Thank you so very much, Ambassador, for reminding us of the importance to continue growing the community of researchers through international cooperation. This will be the topic of our discussion, and to facilitate it, may I please invite on stage Dr. Suzanne Renso-Vasu, Team Leader, EURAXESS ASEAN, to moderate the exchange between Ms. Signe Ratso, Deputy Director General for Research and Innovation and Chief Negotiator of Horizon Europe of the European Commission, Professor Tim White, a Vice President International Engagement at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, Dr. Ronnie Sonjaya, Vice President and Head of Research and Development and Innovation at Evonik Asia Pacific, Dr. Teresa Ho, President of A-Star Postdoc and Early Career Scientist Society, APEX, and co-founder of the National Postdoc Symposium. With that, my pleasure to hand the floor over to you, Dr. Vasu.
Thank you so much, Deepika. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel discussion today. And I have to say, I'm particularly delighted, as Deepika said, to do this again in a physical format. As EURAXESS, we've had over 50 events last year, and every single one was behind a computer screen. So it's really great to see so many of you in person. Singapore and the European Union, as we know, are very close partners. They have a thriving trade relationship, and our two speakers already alluded to the fact that all of them also share a common understanding of the importance of research and innovation, the investment in research and innovation through infrastructure, funding opportunities, talent training, in tackling the challenges that we're facing, not just as the community here in Singapore or in Europe, but really the global challenges that we're facing. And of course, as we heard as well, the importance of investment in research and innovation to translate these challenges also into opportunities and to allow the societies, the people, to thrive and to prosper. Looking at the panel here today, I'm not saying that I'm expecting or hoping for a great discussion. I know we're going to have a fabulous discussion with these 4 excellent panelists, but I'd also like to invite you as our audience, and I see it's a very international audience, and I wouldn't have expected anything else here at NTU. I'm inviting you to make this as interactive as possible. So please, whenever you have a comment to make or a question, please just raise your hand, and we will, of course, accommodate you. As I said, the European Union and Singapore share an understanding of the importance of research and innovation to tackle global challenges. And both of them are also very much committed to international collaboration. And we've already heard some of insights into this, and the panel will, of course, expand on this later today. So maybe I'll pose my first question to Ms. Razzo, who's joined us from Brussels. She arrived last night, to perhaps give us a little bit of an overview into the priorities of the European Union in research and innovation. And if you can, and I know this is quite a big task, to explain to us the framework program Horizon Europe a little bit in a nutshell. And maybe as a third request, if possible, if you could outline also a little bit what are some of the concrete aims that the European Union is hoping to achieve with Horizon Europe. Ms. Razzo, please.
Well, many thanks, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, dear participants. First of all, many thanks for NTU to host us here. Many thanks for co-organizers of this event, that is the EU Delegation here in Singapore and EURAXESS ASEAN, as you collectively organized this event. First of all, I'd like to start by saying that I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back in Singapore. As Ambassador mentioned, the first time was a while ago, more than 20 years ago. I was working for the Estonian government at that time. And Estonia is a small country like Singapore, and we were looking at Singapore's model of development, because we had to reinvent our country after regaining independence in 91. And particularly we were interested in trade, investment. But now I really see all the changes that have taken place since then in the economic sphere, but also in research and innovation. I joined the European Commission in 2006, first in trade, and now for the last 5 years I've been working for research and innovation. So today it's an admirable occasion really to discuss with you how we can improve further also collaboration between Singapore and the European Union in the area of research and innovation. First of all, I believe you all can agree that research innovation is a global endeavor, because we have really the challenges, global challenges, like climate change. I believe that also Singapore, due to your geographical location, you can really feel also, I may even say, existential threats that climate change may have to your country, to your nation. And this is something we clearly share. You asked what are the main priorities for our program. The green as well as digital transformation is certainly the main important drivers also of our program. 35% of the overall budget of the program should be spent on topics related to climate change. So I believe this is already something which clearly we can see that this is the shared priority for Singapore and the EU. The program is open globally. It's already open to the participants of Singapore, But now we are really, I'm here really to discuss with you, with the research community, with all the stakeholders, with also the public institutions, whether we can develop even further the collaboration also in the form of association to our program. But I'll come back to that a bit later. But as promised, I try really to give a snapshot of the program as such, so that you can also see what could be then also the opportunities for Singapore. Now, on this slide, you can see the structure of the program. This is this is already the 9th framework program on research and innovation for the EU, but this is the largest ever, with a budget of nearly 100 billion euros for 7 years, from 2021 to 27. And why it's with the biggest budget? Because now, with these global challenges that we are all facing, the importance of research and innovation has really become crucial. And that's why the European Union has really decided that now we really need to invest into research and innovation. We do that also, the member states also have their own programs, but it's important to have really a global program which is open to the world, where we have the member states, associated countries as part of the program, but also it's open globally. And this is really in line with the Commission communication called Global Approach to Research and Innovation, which also then opened up new possibilities for the countries like Singapore also to become associated to the program, which has been the privilege only previously for the countries which are really in Europe, in our neighborhood to the EU. Now, very shortly, now the program stands on 3 main pillars. The first pillar is excellent science, and this is the pillar which finances the fundamental research with the European Research Council, already the brand which is well known because it's also a number of Nobel Prize winners are also ERC grantees. So this is really the label which is well known, and this continues to be part of the program. Then in this pillar there are also Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions for the exchange of researchers, and this is actually the most successful action also for Singapore. But I'll get back to that a bit later as well. Now, what would be of most interest for you, I believe, and this is also where we concentrate our association to the more faraway countries, is in the second pillar, which is the pillar of collaborative research concerning the global challenges and industrial competitiveness. And as you can see, we have the different clusters there, and the clusters like health, digital, industry, space, climate, energy, mobility, but also food, bioeconomy, natural resources could all be of interest for Singapore, because we know that you have excellent researchers in these areas. This is also the political priorities that we know you are sharing in these areas. So really there is a lot of untapped potential there. Now, when it comes to the innovation pillar, the third pillar, this is something which is new. And what is behind it is that even if we've had very vibrant startup communities, well, in different places in the EU, very often these startup companies, when they wanted to scale up, have gone to other markets where they found the funding, because there hasn't been enough risk funding for these companies really for scaling up. And this is now what we try to also to correct with our program. But here there is also the part of innovation ecosystem, which we also see the possibilities for Singapore. Really, we know that there are already links with the ecosystems, say with France, for instance, and also some other member states. But certainly, then this is something that could be certainly scaled up. Now we can take the next slide, which shows gives an overview of the European partnerships, which would certainly be also additional possibility for Singapore if it becomes associated to our program. Why? First of all, as I said, well, these are also part of the second pillar, the collaborative research, which is also budget-wise the largest pillar. The second pillar is more than 50% of the whole program, and then roughly 50% of the second pillar is spent on these European partnerships. And these bring together the researchers, universities, but also the private sector representatives, also the NGOs, foundations. As I know, Singapore is a very result-oriented nation, so you'd really like to see some impact on the ground. And really, with these partnerships, they are aimed at also the changes on the ground, the results in the economy, in economic growth, new jobs, and so on. It's a bit, you can see that there are quite a few of them, but actually there used to be more than twice as many in the previous program. So now we've really rationalized the approach, and we also rationalized, simplified the funding scheme of these partnerships. But what I'd like to highlight here, for instance, which I believe would be of interest also for Singapore, clearly the clean energy transition, including we also have clean hydrogen, for instance. Then the smart transport. I know that there's already a lot has been done in this area, but also clearly the health pillar, also the safe, sustainable food systems, as well as climate neutral blue economy, namely aimed at the oceans and everything related to that. The next novelty that I'd like to introduce to you is the missions approach, which is something that we are still experimenting, because this is the first time that we have the missions as part of the program. They are also part of the second pillar, and would be open if Singapore becomes associated. What are these the missions? First, they also support the priorities that the EU has, as I already said, such as European Green Deal, Europe Fit for the Digital Age, beating cancer. 4 of them are related to climate change. You see adaptation to climate change, also healthy oceans, seas, coastal inland waters, climate neutral smart cities, and soil health and food. And the 5th is related to beating cancer. They are around the priorities, but also related to the main challenges that we have. The main challenges that we also our citizens share, because our citizens are also concerned about the climate change, the impact of climate change. They need to know how to adapt to that. They certainly are very much behind the cancer mission, for instance, or everything related to the environment also around them, and particularly in their regions. So what is the aim here is to have very clear results within a certain time frame. Just to give an example, in the climate neutral and smart cities, the objective is to have at least 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. This is a very concrete result that we'd like to see. Now we've already chosen the 100 cities from the EU, plus also more than a dozen from the countries which are already associated to our program. And by the way, when we had the call for the call for interest, then there were nearly 500 cities which wanted to become among these 100. So the ambition is very high, but this is also a shared ambition. And likewise, also in all other areas, we have very concrete objectives that we'd like to achieve. So I think this is also the approach which I believe also can be shared here with Singapore. Now coming to the really this association perspective, first of all, as I said, that we have now the also new approach, global approach to research and innovation, which reconfirmed Europe's commitment to cooperate with the best scientists in the world, also to promote multilateralism, openness and reciprocity. And part of that approach is the additional opportunities for the countries like Singapore, which are not so close to Europe, but with whom we share high level of science, technology, innovation, but also the same values. This is actually the privileged partnership that we are offering, which is the closest partnership than you can get, which allows seamless cooperation in all areas of common interest. How does it work? It means that with the countries we negotiate an international agreement, also part of which is also to decide upon the level of the financial contribution to our program. And once it's done, then it's open to all participants, whether they are researchers, whether they are universities or companies from the countries associated to the program, who have basically the same rights and obligations as any participant from the EU. Now, as I said, there is also access to partnerships, which are, many of them are very much private sector driven. And this is an area where certainly the countries can decide which are the partnerships which would be of most interest, which are in the areas with the shared priorities, shared interest, and certainly there is the possibility also to drive that. Now, I believe that this is very much also based on the excellent collaboration that we have already with Singapore, based on the agreements which are already in force, like Partnership Cooperation Agreement, Free Trade Agreement, and Investment Protection Agreement. As I know, now there are active also discussions about EU-Singapore digital partnership. Again, a research and innovation component would have an important part there, particularly the cluster related to digital, and certainly if in case Singapore becomes associated, it would really be also on a much easier basis that you can collaborate.
Already we have here, and also as one of the organizers of today's event, EURAXESS ASEAN, which is connecting researchers and a platform for early career researchers, innovators and practitioners for the whole of ASEAN region. Then Singapore has also been active in the EURECA. It's a member of Enterprise Europe Network, and now looking into the possibility of becoming a full member of EURECA. So there is already a lot happening, which would be also the good basis for additional collaboration. And finally, just to show you what are now the main areas of research innovation collaboration so far. As you can see, the major part is Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. That is which is the particular focus in the staff exchange action, RISE, where there are 19 out of total 27 Singaporean participations. Also, there are 10 Singaporean researchers among our ERC grantees. But now, certainly in the collaborative research, there is still a lot of untapped potential, as I said. But namely in the clusters of digital industry, space, energy mobility, food, bioeconomy, we would see many more opportunities also for Singapore. So this completes my short overview of the program, also highlighting the areas where we can see also the possibilities for Singapore. But coming back to the priorities, why would it make sense for Singapore to collaborate with our program? As said, green transition is key in finding solutions for the climate change. And as you know, the EU is a global leader in the green transition. So from that point of view, I believe that really the case for additional collaboration is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ratzo, for giving us a snapshot of Horizon Europe, which by no means is an easy feat because it is a very complex program, but it is complex because it is so ambitious. And as we've seen, there are so many opportunities for closer collaboration with Singapore research entities. We've seen in the previous framework program, Singapore was already present, but of course, now that we've seen, I think, the thematic focus areas and the collaborative opportunities under Pillar 2. And I think specifically the way the missions are identifying very concrete challenges and setting goals and timelines where the EU is hoping to really bring results. I think that should resonate very much with our audience today. And I think we will, through the discussion, maybe identify even more specifically the opportunities, as you said, that association with Horizon Europe brings for Singapore. Maybe if I invite Professor White. We've already heard from you in your welcome remarks. You've introduced us just a little bit to NTU's 2025 strategic plan. Now maybe also in reflection of what Ms. Ratzo has told us about the thematic priorities of Horizon Europe, how would that resonate with NTU's own strategy, and where do you see maybe synergies and possibilities to intensify collaboration?
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for the overview, which was extremely informative. When we look at the areas that the world is concerned with, the grand challenges, it is no surprise that the areas that NTU is focusing on, such as climate change, such as manufacturing and AI and logistics, which have become important, such as digital transformations and environment. If we look at all of those areas, of course, they overlap very closely, and they need to, because these are areas that we have to address. What I think is rather important, though, is that all of these areas are inherently multidisciplinary. You have to bring together teams of people who can solve these problems. And that's what I see in Horizon Europe, is this desire to bring together teams of people to attack these big problems. And I notice, you've got a tagline there, widening participation, spreading excellence. I would just add one more, enabling communication as the third. That really underpins what is needed to be done. So I think that the possibilities for us to work together are very large. And I would just add something which is specific, not just to Singapore, but also Europe, but it's explicit in the Singapore statements and the NTU statements, but not in your statement, which is the difficulty of the ageing demographic. So if we think about ageing, and Singapore is one of the fastest ageing countries in the world, ageing informs everything that we need to do in science and innovation. It informs the way that we have to develop medical solutions. It informs the way we're going to have to transform our economy to allow us to stay competitive. It informs the way in which we're going to have to change our mobility systems to enable people to be able to navigate cities, safely and so forth. So ageing is the only thing that I would add in terms of explicitness, because that really is driving so much of what we do here. The other part of this, of course, is food, and food again is a major challenge. And I think many people in this room are aware we have the Singapore 30-30 plan, where we have to produce 30% of our protein by 2030. But that also has implications for health. It also has implications for manufacturing. So coming to your question, what is going to be extremely exciting, I think, is that we have such a strong basis for collaboration with Europe already. All we need to do is identify some of these major topic areas and put the right people around them. The other thing that I would mention about the NTU 2025 plan to conclude is that, again, like Horizon Europe, we don't speak in NTU about research projects. We speak about research programs, which is to say we should be covering as wide a range of the technology readiness levels as possible. There should be a place for our professors and students who are excited by basic research, who are excited by applied research, who are excited by translation. And if you really want to produce impact at the end of the day, you can't have any holes, any leaks in that pipe. So I think, again, when I look at the way Horizon Europe is being set up, the fact that you have these three pillars covering all of those areas, you have all of these specific horizontals underneath, I think that's extremely valuable. That fits with us very well. And of course, underpinning everything which you said directly was that we have to have the right people. We have to train people who understand and have the skills to address these grand challenges. So overall, I think the possibilities are all there. We just have to get the right people, the right questions to be answered, and then we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And maybe just a follow-up question. I mean, NTU, of course, has a remarkable international network. I mean, not just in the student exchanges that you offer, but in the partnerships with other universities and industry players, of course. How important is this international collaboration for your strategy as a globally competitive university? And maybe perhaps it would interest me, and I'm sure our audience as well, what are some of the international collaborative projects on campus that you're perhaps most proud of, and where you perhaps see a potential to advance them in the context of Horizon Europe collaboration?
Thank you. So I think the first point to be made is that any university has to approach the question of collaboration with a degree of humility. No university, no organisation has all the answers or indeed can ask the right questions. And I think it's been well established that if you have more people with different backgrounds around the table, you can often find solutions that are really needed, or perhaps more correctly, you can ask the questions that need answering. So for this reason, NTU really places a high priority on creating these international partnerships. We value them. We want to have partners of what we call with whom we have mutual esteem, which is to say that we want to work with partners who really have expertise, capabilities, experiences which we don't have, and similarly we can bring something similar to the table for our partners. So this is the first thing. Without the international collaborations, NTU would not be where it is today. There is no question. And then, sorry, what was this? What was the second part of the question?
No, I was just interested if you could...
Some examples.
Exactly.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I got it. So there are many examples that I could put forward, but I would say that as a global statement to begin, I think NTU is most proud of its corporate partnerships, because corporate partnerships put reality, they put a degree of focus around our research, which would not be there otherwise. And I just add, you know, for people who worry about, well, why would your professors want to work on projects which have an applied outcome? You know, aren't universities supposed to be all about basic research and freedom? I would simply say this, that as we have increased the number of partnerships with companies, the citation rate of our papers has also gone up far quicker. So companies and attacking these grand challenges actually bring questions which need answering, which excite our professors and lead to all sorts of benefits. So examples of where we have done, I think, extremely well. If we look at, for example, the Continental corporate laboratory, what does that do? It allows us, of course, to train our students, it allows our faculty to get experience, but more to the point, we see demonstrable outcomes from that sort of research. We are able to capture the intellectual property. The company is then able to turn it and apply it in their products. These are the sorts of things which we are really very excited about. We have other examples where, for example, we have what we call the Green Manifesto for NTU, where we are going to reduce our waste and water intensity by around about 50% by 2030. These are significant changes. And we do that because of the way that we can integrate technologies and develop technologies, and also the way we can change human behaviour. I think in this context we have technological in large letters in the name of the university, but what is equally important is that we are able to sell these changes, that we are able to understand how the general population will be able to accept changes which are for the good of society, which improve economic performance and so forth. So again, this idea of having multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary approaches is really important to have tangible outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the question that I also asked Professor White, I'm going to pose that to the audience, maybe to start reflecting also where you as researchers see some of the overlaps between the research that you carry out here in Singapore and what Ms. Razzo has sketched out in her presentation earlier. And so maybe we can pick that up in a minute with questions from the floor. But corporate partnerships, as Professor White has said, of course, this is a key aspect to successful research and innovation. This is an integral part, of course, of Horizon Europe as well. And I think my next panelist, Ronnie Sanjaya, of course, represents one of these close industry partners of NTU, Evonik. Ronnie, you are the Head of Research Development and Innovation at Evonik Asia Pacific, and you are, of course, a very close collaboration partner, not just NTU, but the other universities as well, as you told me earlier. Maybe you could just give us a little bit of an idea of what research focus you have here in Singapore.
Yes. Sorry, I have a problem with my mic, apparently. All right, so first of all, thank you again for inviting me. It's really, I appreciate it that I'm with you guys discussing about this important topic. So maybe before that, I probably would like to give some background about what Evonik is doing, just in case that not all of you are aware of what we're doing. So we are a specialty chemical company that is leading beyond chemistry. Yeah, our activity is rather broad. Yeah, from specialty additives, smart materials, nutrition and care. We are a multinational company with a revenue last year in 2021 somewhere around more than 15 billion sales. We are present in more than 100 countries and over 33,000 employees. When it comes to R&D, our focus is on next generation solution to drive sustainability. And again, sustainability in a broad aspect, from nutrition and care, smart materials, and also energy, clean energy. Give you some example, probably what exactly Evonik can do in your word. We have, for example, a product that can go for green tire, yeah, our silica nanoparticles that can be an additives for a rubber tire that can improve the fuel efficiency. But we have also a product that goes, for example, a polyamide trough that for a lightweight vehicle in automotive. But we have as well an activity and product that goes for nutrition and care. Probably the most famous one right now is our lipid nanoparticles that is being used for drug delivery in mRNA vaccine. This is something that we are, of course, doing it together with our partner and also collaborator. In Singapore, we are rather also active. We have total 800 employees as we have 6 sites in Singapore, 4 production facilities. The headquarters of the region is also in Singapore and as well as the research hub. We have our research hub in Biopolis, which is one of the 6 core sites of R&D of Evonik Global worldwide, in which we have almost 100 people working there, including also our interns, trainee, including, of course, interns from NTU that we keep on having every semester, by the way, and of course, A-Star. Yeah? And the activities there that we're doing is also related to next generation solution. Some of the example, one of the activities that we're doing is on the functional coating, in which we develop a next generation coating for industrial and decorative, for easy to clean, again, going into the area of sustainable cleaning. We also have the activity related to life science and advanced biomedical, in which we have the core competencies of cell culture and tissue engineering, looking for, again, sustainable solution on formulation of the media as well as the scaffold. And last but not least, we also do an activity on 3D printing, in which we develop a next generation resin, photopolymer resin for 3D printing applications. So it's rather broad. Yeah?
It is indeed, yes, which I believe makes you a prime candidate to apply to some of the calls under Horizon Europe. Now, is Evonik already involved in a European research partnerships, and what difference do you think would it make to you here in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, if in fact Singapore became associated to Horizon Europe?
I guess you probably know that Evonik is a partner in the program. Yeah, we have, I think, more than 30 projects. I hope my memory is correct. Again, very broad. Yeah, we have Macbeth that is doing catalysts. We also have, I think, Ramses that is doing also some lightweight material for marine, and also we do another project when in the area of drug delivery again with the EU, and of course the partner within the Horizon. Yeah, detail probably I need to check with my colleagues in Germany because they are the one that's driving it. But of course it is an interesting area. Yeah. So first of all, of course, in Singapore, when we are doing our R&D in our research hub, we are also doing it within our global network within Evonik. Yeah? As a matter of fact, majority, or rather almost all of our project that we are doing in Singapore is always a global project. Yeah? Because our R&D hub here, it's not just a simple a tech center for the region, but rather to develop really a global solution. Take an example of our project related to the non-animal derivative collagen for cell culture and tissue engineering, in which we are also doing it with our team in Germany. As a matter of fact, the synthesis of the fermentation of the product is coming from our team in Germany, and then we are doing the application development in Singapore. So this kind of collaboration has been already ongoing since the day that we opened our research hub back in 2018. So this is already in our DNA. Yeah. So of course, this is an interesting area to consider.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sanjaya, and I'll come back to you in a minute, but maybe if I could also invite our fourth panelist to share her views, because we hear, of course, a lot about the importance of international partnerships, international research and innovation collaboration, and I believe for early career researchers, this has a specific importance. And Teresa Ho is the chair or the president, of the Early Career and Postdoc Society of ASTA, but she's also the co-founder of the National Postdoc Symposium in Singapore. And I'd like to add here, she's also a recipient of the Marie Curie Postdoc Fellowship. So she spent 2 years carrying out postdoc research in Denmark. Now, Teresa, in your opinion, you work, of course, with a very international community of researchers here in Singapore. What is important to them for their career development as they're mapping out their own research agenda?
So I think for researchers who have received their training here, who have worked here, I think one of the biggest challenges, or it's very easy to slip into an insular sort of safe kind of mindset. And I think for sustainable career advancement, especially at our level, we really need to be more competitive. Researchers like myself, we need to think deeper, have more connections with our international peers. And I think that's something I see Horizon Europe really helping with. Personally, from my experience as well, just having that access to networking, to good mentors, to different approaches to doing science. That would be very key to make the scientific talent base in Singapore more relevant, to stay relevant, and more competitive. And this will in turn hopefully translate into more impactful research, right? And this does not just come with economic benefits, but more importantly, benefits for human lives.
Thank you, Teresa. Maybe a follow-up question. Mobility, and how important are mobility offers, and maybe not just mobility as such, but the diversity of the mobility opportunities. How important is this? Not just, I think, to the individual researcher, but I think you alluded to it already, just also for the development of the research environment at large. What is your assessment?
So I think, from my personal standpoint, having studied at Cambridge and then taking the Marie Curie Fellowship to Denmark, I had a huge access to collaborator labs even in Germany and Italy. And this really not just gave me a very wide set of technical skills, but it really allowed me to fly and expand my network. And that came very organically from myself, which is a network that I then tap into to really raise the level of my scientific game. And I think that is something that researchers need to do on their own, or have the opportunity or access to try that out. These collaborations can't just come off from their professors or their PIs, or from the universities or institutions. And I think something like Horizon Europe and more cooperation. With EURAXESS, we've worked with you over the past few years since I've been president of the Postdoc Society in A*STAR, and I think even more so last year when we had the first National Postdoc Symposium. I think that was a very, very effective platform for you to link local researchers to funding opportunities in Europe, as well as their European peers. So I hope we could do more of that with the National Postdoc Association going forward.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I'm all up for it. Well, I have to say thank you for this first round, and I think it's given us a lot of information, and we already, I think, see very clearly the very close synergies that there are and the opportunities up for grabs, really, to drive this partnership to the next level. Are there any questions maybe from the floor? Some of you researchers or your industry partners, maybe your views on this. Pass my mic to you.
Thank you very much for your inspiring talk and the doors that you open. I'm professor here at NTU, and in the last 3 months I've worked on possible track that could be very complementary. It's about boosting or fostering the space activities in NTU. And I don't know if you're aware or not, but in NTU we have the Earth Observatory Singapore, which is really the place to use the data as regards geophysical hazards, climate transformation, and so on. And we have also the capacity to design, build, launch, and operate small satellites, nanosatellites. And in fact, it appears that in the equatorial region, there are many scientific phenomena which are posing serious threats and that are not well known from a science point of view. Of course, in Europe, in the US, in Japan, a cohort of scientific satellites have been launched, but the sampling of this phenomenon is not good enough to push the frontier of the knowledge. And if here, in Singapore and the region, we launch dedicated small satellite, each orbit they can take measurements. To do the same, we have to launch 10 times more satellites elsewhere. So, with who could it be possible to talk about possible collaboration with, on this climate research and geohazards mitigation? Is it directly European Union? Is it the European Space Agency with which we are started discussing? What would be your recommendation, and is it a good topic?
Ms. Ratzer, would you like to respond?
This is certainly a good topic. Now, first, we already collaborate in the Earth observation. There is a network, the multilateral network, and the DG Research Innovation is representing the EU there. So certainly, it's also a part of the program that supports that. So certainly, this would be of interest for you. But likewise, also collaboration with the European Space Agency, and also then the space program, which is a separate. But we do have also the part of the research program, also space related calls, which would be of interest. But particularly for this, the Earth observation, because it's key. Also with the climate change, well, we also need really the data, very place-based data, because it would be also crucial for this climate adaptation mission, for instance, because you need to know what is going to happen, what is the prognosis for, namely for your region, because also in Europe we have the regions from Arctic to the subtropical, from the mountainous regions to the coastal areas, and they do have the separate issues, the separate different problems, which also need different solutions. And that's why also when coming back to these missions and our mission approach, the oceans mission is something which we perceive as the most global or multilateral, because it's the oceans which also unite the nations and the countries. We share them, oceans and waters, and we also need to find the solutions. But well, it's also closely related to also the data that you need for this type of work.
Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to come back, if you allow me, unless there is an urgent question at the moment, but I'd like to come back to what Ms. Ratzer said about open to the world, because I think this is really what makes the program very unique. And I think open to the world has been the normative underpinning even of the previous framework program. And as we've had the Pillar 1, the Marie Curie fellowships, for example, that has always been open to participation from researchers from anywhere in the world. But this openness to allow global partners to become an associated partner, I think this is what really takes this international openness to the next level. Maybe we could just ask you to just spell out a little bit more for us. You've already alluded to it. What the the benefits are really of association to Horizon Europe for businesses, for researchers, for universities?
This really makes it easier to collaborate, to build networks, as you already gave from your company's perspective, from your personal perspective, the importance of having the networks, which are crucial in the collaborative research. But now, even if Singapore already can participate in the calls, it always needs to find a partner who is coordinator of the call. Also, there should be at least 3 member states or associated countries for the eligibility for the call. But certainly when Singapore becomes associated member, then it already qualifies as an associated country. It can also become a coordinator with also with a bigger role. From the researchers, from the participants' perspective, it will be really seamless, because you don't need to care from where I need to get a funding in order to participate in the call, because it's already done, it's already paid. So you, as I said, you have basically the same rights and obligations as the EU participants. From the government perspective, also it gives the possibility to influence the program. Because, well, even if we have this the 3 pillars structure for 7 years, but we do have also the strategic program, which specifies the main objectives for a shorter period, and then we have the biannual work programs, which now currently we have for the first one for 21-22. And now already drafting the next one for 23 and 24. And the member states, as well as the associated countries, are, so to speak, around the table where the decisions are taken. Actually, what should be included in the work program. There are work programs per each cluster. If, for instance, Singapore is particularly interested in the one on climate, energy and transport, which are in one cluster, then it can be really active in this configuration, and actually has also the tools how to influence what will be included in the work program, and finally also in the calls. So there is also the possibility to co-design the program together with the others, and also to influence the process. Now, in addition, there will be also the national contact point network. Actually, there is the possibility already Singapore to appoint national contact points already now in order to promote the program as such. But they will get particular support also when they become part of the network of associated countries, NCPs. They can learn from each other, from the experience of their peers in other countries, what has worked, what are really the decisive factors. They will get training. So actually they are the first ones to help then the beneficiaries, the participants of the program. There are also other advantages, but I think that the main benefit will still be that then you can put together your also the investment into research and innovation in order to be more efficient and to have greater impact. Because what we really aim at with our program is to have real impact. Not only research impact, but also economic and also social impact. In the end, to make also the future brighter for our people and for future generations.
Thank you so much. Any questions from our audience members? Barry has a question.
Thanks, Susanna. Off, I guess I can. Thanks very much. I'm going to pick up on the word open. So I'm Barry Clark. I'm Managing Director for Taylor & Francis, one of the publishers. And in fact, colleagues of mine at F1000 provide the platform for the Open Research Europe platform. And I'm just wondering what your opinions are about the role of more openness and publishing outputs, which I think would support all the things that you're looking to achieve through things like collaboration with Singapore. And particularly, I don't know if, Tim, you'd like to comment on Singapore's own sort of policies towards, perhaps that's too strong a word, but sort of thinking around open access, because Europe, as we all know, has been pushing the open access agenda quite aggressively. Other countries have been a little bit more reserved. I'm just wondering whether you've got any comments on the role of publishing outputs in this more open world. Thank you.
Now, you're right that we are in for open access. And what we've particularly seen during the pandemic was the advantage, first, that our program gave the flexibility, first of all, to have special calls already in March 2020, when it wasn't declared as pandemic. COVID-19 was not declared as pandemic. So we did it already at the beginning of March. Then what we did also from the very start was to have the open results platform of all the funded research that we did, but also that member states and associated countries did. They became also a part of that platform where they also published all the results, which made it easier, certainly, then to share the data, to share the results among the whole research community in order to find the vaccines, the cures, everything that was needed also to come over the pandemic. And certainly this is something which we promote a lot. So this is really one of these principles that we also promote as part of the global approach, and this has really paid off, as I said, particularly during the pandemic.
Yes, thank you for the question. I maybe just answer this from a slightly different perspective. One of the things which I think all universities have to be concerned about, and research institutes, and it also came out in COVID, is ethical research and also the quality of data. And I think, around COVID, we saw in the early days quite a lot of questionable research published. We saw rapid, shall we say, release of information and conclusions in the general press rather than through the normal scientific process. And I was horrified to see an updated number of the number of predatory journals, which I think now is over 100,000. It's a very large number. And so I think that open data, open access is extremely important, and I think it is definitely to be encouraged. It allows people to re-examine data, correlate data, look at data in new ways. So fundamentally, I think that everybody has agreed with that, and of course Singapore as well. There are two issues that I think come up. The first, which may be a lesser question in Europe, but is certainly a question within this region, is that, of course, open access journal, open access data is not free of charge. And there is the risk that scientists and researchers in some countries will not be able to publish their data in good journals because they simply can't afford it. And so, the old model of where you would publish in a society journal of very high quality, but you could publish for free, I think we have to be mindful that we could actually exclude good ideas, exclude new approaches to research if we take this open access too far too quick. So I think that's partly why there's some hesitancy by some countries, because they feel, we can't support our researchers to pay the page charges and everything else that goes along with open access. And then the other part of open access, I believe, is that we really need to make sure that if we have open access, open really means open. And there's not selectivity in what actually gets put up. And I'm speaking of this as someone who chaired the ethics committee at NTU for quite a long time. And I think we still have to address the way in which we ensure the quality of the data. So my own background is in crystallography. And for those of you who don't know, crystallography was one of the first disciplines to have open access widely. And they have a lot of safeguards in place. It's not so easy to do that with some other disciplines. So the short answer is open access is actually essential to allow scientists, engineers to get to solutions more quickly. I think we just have to be mindful, can everybody use it? And is the quality of the data such that it will allow us to get good outcomes at the end?
Thank you so much, and thank you, Barry Clark, for the question. Are there any other questions from the floor? Then maybe, of course, the key word is COVID, and we've already mentioned it, that I'd like to just, out of personal curiosity as well, like to know how COVID has affected international cooperation, how it has affected the need for international collaboration, what impact it had on research and innovation, and maybe, Ms. Ratzer, which impact has it had for the international openness of Horizon Europe as a validating principle, maybe? What are your thoughts?
Now, it strengthened it even further. First, it clearly underlined the need for international collaboration, because we clearly we couldn't have managed to develop the vaccines at such a rapid speed without international collaboration. What I'd also like to highlight is that that not always understood the value of basic research, fundamental research, because there you don't see the results immediately. But without investing, for instance, into the mRNA, where also the ERC grants supported that, the BioNTech, without it, we wouldn't have had the mRNA-based vaccines against COVID. So certainly they were there, the solution was there, waiting for the opportunity actually to utilize it. And also in all these areas, what we really promoted the collaboration with international partners. Well, first, we did that with all the member states, with associated countries, but also then with the global partners. But with that, now what I'd also like to mention that now not directly related to COVID, but well, as Ambassador also mentioned, that we are living in a changing world with new geopolitical tensions. Which also then make it even more necessary for the countries who share the same values to come together. And also, I believe that what is now partially behind also the decision that has been already taken by countries like Canada and New Zealand to start the formal negotiations on Horizon Europe accession is also the need that under these circumstances we really need to come together to collaborate even more closely also in research and innovation area, but also the access to food, the access to raw materials also then underlines the strength and the need for collaborative research to find really the solutions, the new food sources, the alternative energy sources, everything that actually our societies would need. So clearly now I think that's time. Well, that's more than ever before. The need for international collaboration is in research has become important.
Thank you so much. And Professor White, maybe, how has this affected NTU's own strategic plan?
Perhaps not as much as you might think. just to give some context here, NTU was always very well placed for COVID because Singapore experienced SARS. And so we were already producing a lot of materials for online learning. We had sort of a base of lecturers who were used to teaching this way. And in fact, we have a student body who 95% tell us they prefer to get their lectures online. The flip side is that they would like to have more tutorials. So in terms of the educational program, not so much. In terms of research, it depends how you want to look at it, and I am sort of naturally an optimistic person. I think that COVID really showed quite quickly that we could do a lot through Zoom and Teams. Not everything, but we could do a lot. And that has obvious benefits in terms of reducing your carbon footprint. You don't have to fly overseas all the time. You don't have to attend so many conferences because they can be hybrid or online. So in many respects, it was fine. In others, of course, you do have to set foot in a laboratory. You do have to interact with people. But I think we're going to be much more efficient in the way that we do that going forward, much more mindful of how we travel, when we travel, and when we actually interact virtually. So I think that what COVID allowed us to do was to really accelerate the process of working online. It certainly doesn't work in every case, but it does work in a lot of cases. And I think that what we have learned through COVID and the virtual interactions is that we need to be more expansive in our appreciation of what can be done online. I suspect we've only gone part of the way to learning how to exploit online platforms for research. There is much more that we can do in the future.
Thank you. Great potential. Absolutely. I think we also have to scale down on our productivity. I reckon everybody's productivity during COVID has increased by about 100%. So we need to keep our mental health in mind as well. I think we've almost reached the end of our time here. And what we've heard, I think, is to me a very clear indication that there are, as you said, like-minded partners around the table who share common goals, an appreciation of international collaboration. We all are very much aware that the challenges that our societies face are identical. They don't cross at national borders. We have very shared values, as Ms. Ratso has so aptly said. And as we've seen, the thematic priorities that Horizon Europe is focusing on are very much in line with what NTU has identified for its own strategic plan, but Singapore as a whole, of course, has as its own target. I would just like to ask a final question, maybe from your perspective as an industry player and policymaker, a young researcher and an academic. What if we were to meet in 5 years' time here in the same room, and we're again talking about Singapore, EU's relationship in research and innovation? What would you like to see? And maybe we start with Ronnie, because he sits closest to me.
Sure, no problem. So actually, I want to mention a little bit on a different angle, because I think everybody's already mentioning it in terms of collaboration and doing speed up the project and so on, which of course I cannot agree more on that. I mean, everything's, I think it's totally agreeable, but I want to mention a little bit more on the talent development and talent acquisition. I think Prof. White mentioned it very early, but I think that part was not really discussed again. And I think this is something that I want to see 5 years from now, if somehow this kind of collaboration can also basically nourish talent development across international talent, because for us, especially for us in Evonik, the whole reason why we collaborate, it's also about developing talent, getting a talent pool for us that has a more international vision. I think Prof. White mentioned it in some very early, and I do hope that this kind of collaboration can strengthen the talent pipeline, for, again, not only Singapore, I think it's also on vice versa, So.
Thank you so much. I think a very good point. Talent circulation. I can only point you all to the Marie Curie Fellowships, which are a fabulous opportunity for two-way mobility. Ms. Ratso, please.
Ideally, in 5 years' time, we are getting close to the end of the program. So I would very much like to see Singapore as associated to the program and already reaping very clear results from its participation in the program, whatever areas they might be.
Teresa.
I think from an early career researcher perspective, I wish to see a good meeting of minds that would really elevate the caliber of science here and how we can also give to the international community, and just really sharing resources to face some of the common challenges that you very nicely highlighted.
Thank you.
So I think that if we were sitting here in 5 years' time, I'd like to see us emblazoned up there, EU-Singapore Joint Research Centre. That's what I want to see, because, and that joint research centre could serve several goals. First of all, it's about visibility. There's obviously quite a lot, really a lot going on between Singapore and EU, but perhaps it doesn't get the prominence it deserves. So if we put it out there front and centre, that's a good thing. Second, it provides a focus point. So researchers, whether they come from A-star universities, wherever, they know if they want to do something with Europe, this is where you go to do it, and vice versa. And I think the third thing is that we could perhaps, under that banner, we could just come up with 2, possibly 3 flagship projects so that we really harness in a comprehensive way expertise in Europe, expertise in Singapore, and because we're focusing on just 2 or 3 areas, we would have real impact that we could boast about in 5 years' time. And of course, boasting is always a good thing. It gets you more resources, right?
Well, thank you so much. I think there's not much to add. This is a fantastic vision. Ms. Razzo has lots to do in the next few days. And I think, as Ambassador said at the beginning, we also hope that you are also all our ambassadors to promote this program and to work together, that the relationship in research and innovation between Singapore and the European Union becomes even better. And with this, thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much to the audience. And I hand back to Deepika.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Really an invitation to collaborate, to cooperate, and there's lots more that can be said, but for now, I'm going to request our panelists to stay on stage, and may I please invite the European Union Ambassador to Singapore, Ivona Purko. We're going to be doing a group photo, so I would invite you to stand up. I'd invite also Anne Hagland-Morrissey to join the photo, and Wanda Pricer, who has made everything possible here. Pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, please do come up for a group photo.
Thank you to the audience and to the great sharing also.
On behalf of the European Union delegation to Singapore, I express my sincere thanks to Professor Tim White and the team at NTU for making today's event possible. Thank you all for joining us, and I wish everyone a good afternoon or evening.